Skirptards, beware. You are listening to Brothers of the Serpent podcast.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, angels and demons and monsters and serpents to Brothers of the Serpent podcast, episode 60 Coming to you not live from the 10 by 10 by 10 tangent cube of science, nestled amongst the dusty bones of an ancient seabed high atop the Edwards Plateau. We have a guest in studio with us today, Mr. Clint Beckham. He was the guide with us when we went on the big Arrowhead digging, giant footprint finding expedition a little while back. And he
Snake Force
with the Snake Force. And so he is in studio with us today. How you doing, man?
Good. How are y'all doing? Thanks for having me.
Oh yeah, this is gonna be great. So he's got all kinds of good stories. And well, the first thing, so we went briefly to a dig you're doing out on Mason Creek, and like we were both just blown away by that whole operation. So like it's a to tell us about how that works. Paid digs. How does that work?
Basically, what we do is I get permission from a landowner to go in, and I charge X amount of dollars.
Yeah.
Per person, so it's just like a deer hunt.
Okay.
It's basically a guided arrowhead hunt.
Yeah.
And I have screens that are 8 foot long by 4.5 foot wide, and we dig with skid steers.
Yeah.
So as much dirt as those guys can move.
Yeah.
You know, some people move 60 loads a day. Some people move 70 loads a day. Some people move 10 loads a day.
Yeah.
What they find, they keep.
Yeah.
And
man, it was awesome out there.
Yeah.
That was amazing. Yeah. So basically, you're at a big screen, and the skid steer would come up and just dump all this dirt on it, and then you sift through it yourself, and like they're dumping for other people and everything, and you sift through it, and as soon as you're done, they've got another load for you. You put it on the screen, and you keep going, and you get to keep what you find, and it was awesome.
Right.
So how many screens did you have out there on the Mason Creek dig?
On Mason Creek 4, I've done 4 of them, all on Mason Creek. At first, I was running 12 screens, 24 people, and then that site was phenomenal. So the next door neighbor got in, and then it was Mason Creek 2, and then I just started building more screens. And at the very end, I had 17 screens on Mason Creek 4 because so many people were calling me trying to get in because the artifacts were just phenomenal coming out of there.
Yeah.
In numbers, you know. So.
And how much do you charge per person? Per day?
$250 per person.
$250.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy, dude. So
and
you use 2 skid steers to handle.
Yes,
all
on
those screens.
12 to 14 screens, I'll do 2, and 17 is I run 3 skid steers.
Okay.
2 guys dumping dirt, and 1 guy, if we get behind,
cleaning it up
and helping out. You know, so.
Yeah, because you also have to get in there and like get all the fines out from underneath the screen when they
right, because it piles up, and then people are arched over, and the sun comes. So.
Yeah. You end up standing on a mountain that's coming out from underneath your screen.
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
and you'd be surprised how many people lose arrowheads that way.
They drop it into it, it just disappears.
Yeah, it just wipes off the table, and just a particular story about that is my mom was helping me test one time, and I dumped the load, and then I was coming back to clean out from underneath the screen.
Yeah.
And I could see the back end of a Kerrville knife, which is, I don't know if you know what a Kerrville knife is. It's the raw cortex of flint with the blade napped finally coming out of there.
Yeah.
Kind of like what Wesley found that day.
Yeah.
And
is KK.
Yeah, KK. There you go, KK, Kerrville knife. So my mom, I could see the back end of it, and I said, "Mother," I said, "you're standing on that." I said, she was like, "Where?" And I was like, "You're standing on it. Get off of it." And I couldn't really tell because it was piled in dirt.
Yeah.
But when she pulled it out, it kept on coming and coming and coming. It was like 6.5 inches long. Beautiful.
Wow.
Dang.
And how she missed a 6.5 inch long Kerrville knife, KK, on the screen, I have no idea. But
you're like, "Mom, what's the problem?"
Yeah, exactly. So that dirt field that we were talking about building up, you know, I've found arrowheads in it after rains, you know.
Oh, yeah, I gotcha. Wow. And then you come in later and you smooth everything out when the whole dig's done, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, because the thing that blew me away about that site, and you're calling it Mason Creek 4 because it's the fourth tract or whatever?
Right, fourth one that we did.
And they're all in a row there?
They're Actually, one of them was across the road down the creek.
Oh, okay.
There's one more site there that lady, she's not letting us go in.
She's gonna save it, huh?
Yeah, it's going to be phenomenal too. That's the heart of the camp.
Okay,
And-
well, that was what blew me away is that I couldn't see a place that looked like a mound
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
And then, but in the places where the skid steer had dug, 3 feet down, you could see some burn rock in a little row. you know?
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's like, I'm like, they're digging up the whole creek bank, just like going across the property, digging up the
Yeah,
whole
right,
bank.
yeah.
I mean, how many creek banks have I walked on that are just, they have midden rock 3 feet down, like all through there?
Yeah, they're called subterranean middens, and a bunch of them. Onion Creek in Austin, man, that thing is loaded, but a lot of it's flooded, so you don't know what's underneath there until you get there.
Oh,
And
yeah.
The funny thing, how Mason Creek got started was my mom had met a lady in Bandera, and she said, "Do you know of anybody that has arrowheads on her property?" So she takes me to this lady, Mason Creek 1, and the lady tells me, "Oh yeah, I have lots of arrowheads." She's up on top of above the creek.
Yeah.
And she said, "You can dig up my horse pens, whatever, to make that money." And I'm like, "I'm not going to dig up your horse pens, but I said, "Do you mind if I see the arrowheads that you found?" And it was just a bag of flint, a couple of napped ones here and there.
Oh.
Nothing real precise.
Yeah.
And I said, "Do you have any creek front property?" And she said, "Yeah, down there, but we've never found anything, no arrowheads, just pterodactyl claws." So I just said, "Okay, yeah." So I said, "Well, do you mind if I go down and look?" And I went down there, and I didn't see a midden or pterodactyl claws, but I saw some burnt rock and some chips of flint and stuff. So I brought my equipment in and tested it, and it was crazy. I never would have guessed it because there was no mound, like you said.
Yeah.
And the first weekend, we found over 3,000 artifacts. Oh my God!
Were any of them pterodactyl claws?
No.
Damn it.
I'm still looking for those. So I've looked at them on 1, 2, 3, and 4. So I haven't found any yet. But
What is she talking
So how
about?
far down did y'all dig? Like, what's your typical? Do you just keep going until how do you know how deep to go?
yeah, you just read the rock layer. There's certain layers. There's your top 6-8 inches is usually really black dirt, and it'll have some flint and a lot of your later points, your bird points and stuff will be in there, and then you'll get to an organic layer where it turns into like ash from the fire, and you start seeing that burnt rock like what y'all saw out there, 3 or 4 feet down, and you just kind of read the rock layer, and that rock layer is the occupation layer.
Yeah.
So that's and when it's really concentrated, that means that there was high occupation there, so that hopefully the points are in there. The deeper you go, you can go. I've been 8, 9, 10 foot deep, and you can find occupation layer there, but it's not as productive because there probably wasn't as many people there. Somebody was there, so you're not going to find as many points.
Right. Or it's older and it's been mixed up and spread out and
Right.
Yeah, flooded,
Right.
Flooded
more,
and
way more
washed
times
away,
than the
yeah.
higher stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So does that? If you did find do you ever find them on top of each other? Like you got one occupation layer and then you keep going down and there's another one.
Mm-hmm.
And are the points that you're finding in there, do they match the dating? Like what
Yeah.
you would expect, like having the really old stuff down here and the newer stuff up here?
Yeah, absolutely. They it's now I have seen situations where it's been flooded and you're finding Angosturas with bird points.
Okay.
What is
Angostura is 8,000-9,000. It's transitional paleo. I mean, very close to paleo point, the old ones.
Yeah.
And bird points are 1,500, 2,000 years old. You
Yeah.
know, so that's the last guys that's the true arrow point. But
Right.
that doesn't happen often, but it can be from a flood or who knows, maybe the bird point people picked up a
picked up a paleo point.
paleo point and said, "Hey, I'm going to use this. This guy left."
Yeah,
it
maybe
long
they
time ago."
found a paleo mound and they were harvesting
Exactly, like
they were
we
over
are,
there
yeah.
digging,
Yeah. So, but yeah, it pretty much matches up. You can on a camp that hadn't been disturbed or whatever, you can tell you've got your bird points, and you start getting into your archaic. And,
Yeah.
late, early transitional paleo.
That's cool. So you, I remember you telling us when we were out at the other place on Devil's River, you were telling us about trapping, right? So this is how isn't this how you kind of got into doing this? Because you did a lot of trapping where you're wandering around out in the middle of nowhere by yourself, trying not to die.
Right, yeah. Yeah, on that particular ranch, that's how I got in on there.
Yeah.
Going to the hunting deal, this guy told me to shoot every aoudad I saw out there because they were a nuisance. And I said, why? Yeah. And he said, they're just a nuisance. And I said, we could sell these things. It's the poor man's bighorn sheep hunt. So he said, okay. He said, if you can make us $10,000 between the two of us in a whole year, then we'll continue on. We'll build a website. Well, I have an outfitter friend and made some phone calls, etc. And I think we cleared 90,000.
Wow,
that year.
Damn.
Yeah, I mean we were
on
shooting
aoudad.
Yeah, we were shooting aoudad like crazy, but
yeah.
And then we just turned it into a website and a business. Been going.
That's great.
Our 7th year now. So
that's awesome.
But that's how I got on that ranch.
Yeah.
But I started as a kid hunting arrowheads up in East Texas. Just kind of surface hunting, and my parents were into it. And I think I told y'all about my great grandmother getting killed.
Nope, didn't hear that story.
Yeah, she had a beautiful collection, and my mom always dug with her and stuff, but she was digging in Tarpley, Texas, in a shelter. And the story that I've gotten was there was a tree that was on top of that shelter that had fallen over.
Yeah.
And the roots were exposed up top, and she was digging at the head of that tree on the outside. Somehow it unbalanced a rock, came down and crushed her.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Wow.
She was in her 70s, mid-70s, and...
well, you died doing what you love.
Absolutely. And her mother supposedly was surface hunting and fell and hit her head on rock, and it killed her.
Wow.
So every time I go arrowhead hunting, that's why I run the tractor now. You know what I mean? I don't have many arrowheads myself. I'm scared to play in the dirt too much. I just run the tractor, and...
It's the family tradition.
Yeah, absolutely. So...
Wow,
that's my inside joke there. But
so, but yeah, tell us your origin story. Like, how did you really get started in doing this as a business and like developing the way you do it?
Well, I came across a guy. There's several guys that do this commercially. I went to a lot of his digs. I invited him out to the Skyline, and I got him in to do a commercial dig there. And I just kind of oversaw the operation with my partner, the landowner, in the hunting deal.
Yeah.
And kind of learned it. It's funny because one day he said, well, why don't you run the skid steer, and I'll do the screen, because he liked to screen for himself. And... I got on that skid steer, and I said, oh, shoot, yeah, I can do this. I got it. And about 5 minutes after I dropped the first load, he said, you're going to kill somebody here. He's like, get off the skid steer and you screen for me. And I was like, all right. So kind of ticked me off. I was like, you know what, screw you, So about a year later, he left that camp, and I knew there were more camps. And I said, you know what, if he can do this, I can do this. So I got good on skid steer. And then I got to the point where it was like, okay, if people are paying $250 a pop, they want production,
right?
Just like a aoudad hunt,
Yeah.
I'm not going to shoot someone else's aoudad if they're paying $4,000,
right?
So, long story short, I realized that if I provide for the people, and other commercial diggers, they'll go out and they'll be like, they start finding the points and they'll go the other direction. And that's not right. You know what I mean? That's not right. Yeah. And that's what...
So they kind of wait until everybody's gone, and then they go they keep that spot for themselves.
Yeah, or for the next group to come in because it's hot or whatever. They don't want to dig it all up. And me, I'll blow through a camp, man. If I hit the hot spot, it's coming. Guys, get ready. And I'll see, awesome artifacts rolling in that bucket. And I'm like, good luck. Boom, dump it and go, get pictures later. But
yeah.
And I'm like, there's some I'm like, oh man, that'll look good in my frame. But I like the green better. So
yeah. Yeah. So about the green though, there's a whole sort of like it's not black market, but it's like a hidden market for this stuff.
Right.
And it's interesting how that whole thing works. So can you talk some about that? Like how the whole
The trade.
Yeah, the trade.
Yeah, it's there was a time when I was in my 20s and I was wild and crazy, and all I did was rode bulls, and I called it digging rocks and riding stock. And, I was about as worthless as they come. I didn't have a job, but I did have a job, and it was rodeoing and chasing in mounds, and so I'd dig, and what I'd find I'd sell.
Yeah.
And some days I'd make 100, some days I'd make 2,000, some days I wouldn't make anything.
Yeah.
And after 2 years of eating top ramen and starving to death, I made more money digging rocks than I did riding bulls, but I still didn't make enough. I realized, you know what, it's better to do it commercially.
Yeah.
And, go from there, because it's a guaranteed income.
Right.
As long as you're fair to the people and you keep, providing.
Yeah.
But it's 1 in 200 points are going to be your big money points.
Yeah.
And not everybody finds them,
Yeah.
My most expensive arrowhead I've ever found was a corner tang knife, and I've looked 34 years for it. And I sold it for $6,000.
Oh, okay, yeah. That's
to my brother, and that was, with option to buy back. But you don't find those $10,000, $15,000 arrowheads every day.
Yeah.
So it's just a...
Yeah. Yeah, there's very few that are multiple, like, in the six-figure whatever.
Yeah.
Unless you're Cody Tripp.
Yeah, unless you're Cody Tripp, yeah.
And then there's one.
Right. And it's like 8 figures.
Yeah. Cody has a lot of my points that I've sold him over the years. So
yeah, and he's not selling too, which is interesting. I think that's cool.
Yeah, he's a straight up collector.
Yeah.
And he'll buy just unique stuff. He likes a lot of stuff from Bandera County,
Yeah.
So that's what I was going to ask you about. Like I know they do that big convention or whatever in Fredericksburg every year, and all the collectors, and they come from all over the United States, right?
Oh yeah. I've had diggers fly in from Idaho.
Yeah.
I've had them fly in from Montana, Louisiana, drive down from all over, but yeah, that Fredericksburg show, it brings a lot of people, and there's a Kerrville show, and I think there's still a Kerrville show, but they're all over the state,
And is that sort of like, it's like that's where all the collectors and diggers both like they get to know each other? And because I went to one, and I know there was a guy there that was like the official guy that could actually like give you papers on a
authenticate them. That was probably Dwayne Rogers. There's Dwayne Rogers, Bill German, and I think there's 1 or 2 more guys that are authenticators.
Yeah.
And what they say, they look at the flaking. I don't agree with some of them, but if it's a Pedernales point, for instance, and they call it a corner tang knife, it's a corner tang knife. If they stamp it corner tang, no matter what the shape, that's just the way. But they're very good.
Yeah.
I mean, that was just kind of a far-fetched scenario,
right?
But there has been some discrepancy. But yes, those guys, once they get them papered. And most collectors say, okay, it's papered by Dwayne Rogers or Bill German. Yeah, so it's good.
Right.
And they can tell if it's a fake one, because believe it or not, people make fakes that are damn good. You know? So.
Yeah, we went through a period, or at least Kyle did, and one of our friends went through a period of learning how to nap, and some of them are still working on it, and they got pretty good. And there are watching the videos online, and people can...
Oh yeah,
they can nap those things badass.
Yeah, they look. If I was an Indian, I'd starve to death because I can't nap.
Me too.
I'd be vegetarian,
Yeah.
So, but
I'm sure it's the same. Like with them, like there were ones that were really good at it, and everybody had to use their points.
Oh yeah. And there's some points that I found. I'm like, man, this guy was horrible.
Not very good.
He was at the back of the tribe or something,
Yeah.
But,
I've got one up at the top. Actually, that it's like it's warped or whatever. Like it looks like a kid made it.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
it was a practice point or whatever. It's just completely bent, and like you can't shoot, you can't use this
for shooting around corners.
So does that happen in like certain mounds or certain sites? Just have ridiculously awesome, well-made artifacts, and certain sites just have kind of junk.
Yeah,
And you think that's like there's just better artists over here or better workmanship in that area or something?
That and the material. Different regions of Texas. Like I did a dig up in East Texas not too long ago, 2 or 3 months ago, and the material is just ugly. And it's hard to. I don't see how they could even make them, and so they wasn't as precise and with the finesse on them. But then you may find just some phenomenal piece.
Yeah,
I can show you some pictures. That was beautiful flint, but that flint wasn't from East Texas.
They traded for the flint or something. Yeah,
right. So they traded for it, but I think they all had good skills, great skills. It's just I think what they had to work with.
Right.
And that's why I can't make arrowheads.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why, folks.
The wrong flint.
I just don't have good flint yet.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, and then there's the ones that are made out of like obsidian.
Right.
Kyle has ones that are made out of quartz. I don't even know how you do that. I mean,
Yeah,
how do you make one out of
I've
quartz?
seen them out of quartz. They had to work at it.
Yeah. I can't even imagine.
Yeah, this one that I have, it's broken. It's just the base and part of the top, but it's beautiful. It's like, and it's almost clear like glass.
Right. Yeah, the
it's like-
translucence.
Yeah. How did they do that?
Yeah.
With that
Quartz is incredibly hard.
Yeah.
And does not flake the same way that flint does. It's not the same at all.
No, it's I don't see how some of those little bird points, they get them so, just notched
so
out.
thin.
So thin and without breaking them and
Yeah. Yeah, and you shoot something like that, add something with an arrow or whatever, and you just have to wonder, like, did they break every time they used them?
Yeah, exactly.
So the ones we find that are intact are ones that never got shot or something like that.
Could be, yeah, could be. I have a buddy of mine who lives in Bulverde, and he makes his own arrowheads. He's a napper.
Yeah.
And then he makes his own bows out of Osage.
Wow.
And arrows, and he actually hunts with them. Yeah, he's actually...
That's hardcore.
Yeah, he's actually coming out to hunt with me this year, this deer season with that. And I'm like, cool, man.
That's badass.
Yeah.
You're paying $2,500, don't miss. You know what I mean? Hope your arrow point works, because there ain't no refunds on this one, Jack.
So, okay. You were telling me about, what were you doing? You were, was it lions you were after?
Yeah, I was a government trapper out there. Trapping mountain lions, bobcats, coyotes, anything predatory that damaged livestock or wildlife.
Right.
It was...
Yeah. And so you'll be wandering these canyons. Mm-hmm. Doing that, yeah, and that was how you. So we told the story on the podcast where we talked about the trip that we took. I told the story of like where I just took off up the canyon because you had said that there was something up there, some shelter or whatever. I was like, I can find this, and like I just took off up the canyon without a radio or anything like that. And I found shelters, but I guess it wasn't the one you were talking about.
No, they have a distinct. They have the burnt rock midden coming out of them.
Yeah.
And you can tell by the ash and stuff like that, so some of them are natural, shelters from erosion, etc.,
Yeah.
But you'll be able to tell when you get into one. You'll start seeing flint chips everywhere.
Okay, yeah. This one looked like it had been used as something. I mean, it was a perfect lookout site because it was on the tip of like an isthmus or whatever, like a peninsula where the canyon would split, and it was way up there. And you could just see all the way down the valley, Right. But there was another one there were two on either side of that, and I didn't go to those.
Those two were the ones you were looking for.
No, damn it!
I know where you're talking about.
Damn it! Well, it was still awesome up in there. It was an amazing thing to look at. All the shells were stuck up in the ceiling and everything. It was just awesome. Yeah. So that was really cool. And all right, so we were talking out there sometimes, and you're talking about these various archaeologists who, like, okay, so they will name something after the town that something was found in, and then they expect that point to only be in that area. So when you find one that it looks just like one of those and it's not in that area, they get upset by this?
Yeah, they I don't know. Those guys, I like them, but I hate them, you know. It's, I have total respect for them, recording and recording all the history and documenting and everything. But they get a little off-centered sometimes, I call it. But it's, like the Pandale Point.
Right.
Has a twist, and sure, they've been found all the way here to Bandera County.
Yeah.
You know, those guys traded.
Right.
You know, but, you know, Valverde points, you know, I've seen very close to those around here, but never a Valverde, you know, out of Valverde County.
Right.
And even though it says Valverde County, they've been found in Bracketville and Real County and stuff like that. So,
okay.
Close to that region, but, you know.
Still, yeah. So, like, in archaeology, that's called isolationism. Where, and, like, we're on this podcast, we're more diffusionists, which is where the stuff will spread out because people are talking to each other, trading with each other, moving around, you know. That we think that these ancient people were, number one, a lot more capable than people think they were, and that they moved around a lot more, and that they were like not as primitive as people think.
Right. They were no dummies, that's for sure.
Yeah.
You know, they knew what was going on.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Their butt flaps were more advanced.
Right.
Just give them credit.
I got you.
Yeah, that's what we call it, butt flaps.
Right.
You know, walk around with spears and butt flaps, dude.
Right on.
But when you have an advanced butt flap, you know, some archaeologists just don't like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they automatically assume butt flaps.
Right.
The moment they find anything that's not, you know, common era.
Yeah. Yep.
That's funny you say that because about, it was last year sometime after Mason Creek had hit a big, just crazy. And the guy from Naked and Afraid called me.
Okay.
The TV series.
Yeah.
And he wanted to do a series out on the Skyline Ranch where y'all came.
Yeah.
And I told him, I said, dude, the Indians were afraid out there and they were naked. You know what I mean? With their butt flaps. I was like, you don't want to bring modern people in here. I said, they'll all die. I don't care if you have, you know, I don't care if you have your medical crew and your TV crews and all that stuff. I was like, no.
Yeah, they'll go off and die, and then the TV crew will go die trying to find them, and the medical crew will go out there and die.
Exactly. I mean, if they can eat rocks, and then they'll survive. But if not, they're going to be afraid and naked, you know? So,
yeah.
I had to say that when you were talking about the butt flaps.
Naked and afraid.
Yeah.
That's great.
So we denied that. They offered us like $5,000 to come in.
Yeah.
I was like, no, I don't want to see a bunch of dudes naked out here. You know what I mean? While y'all are filming it, you know.
Yeah. Oh, man. Yeah, I would not be one to run around out there naked either.
No.
Everything's trying to stab you and
Exactly.
inject you with poison.
Exactly.
So you're still doing promoting the digs out there at the Skyline, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So how do people that want to go on a dig or want to find out where the digs are or whatever, how do they get into it?
Usually you can call me, you know. I can throw my number out there when it's time. Facebook, you know, there's a lot of those Arrowhead Facebooks. There's Texas Church, Texas Digging Church, Texas Headhunters, just asked to join, Texas Pay Digs. There's, you know, a million different private and public group Arrowhead sites that you talk nothing but arrowheads. You know? You throw a hunting picture up there, they're going to boot you off, you know.
Yeah.
You know, this is arrowheads. Or you talk about, you know, hot coffee spilling on you at McDonald's, they're going to be like, you know,
kick you off.
It's just one of those deals.
Well, we can definitely put whatever contact information you have for your hunts, because people that are interested in that, and digs, we'll put those in the show notes too. So anybody who's interested in that, you can scroll to the bottom of the show notes and you'll be able to find all that information.
Right on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you know, I've basically ever since I've been interested in chasing mounds, everybody's real secretive. You know, about it.
Yeah.
Like you ask Cody, well, where you been digging? Oh, you know, nobody wants to tell you. So I figured that out early.
Yeah. Oh, in the ground.
Yeah, in the ground. So, you know, we haven't we actually in our show about the skyline, we were like in parts unknown.
Yeah,
Texas.
we weren't telling anybody.
Right.
Out of respect, because anytime we've because we worked on people's ranches and stuff, and have found sites multiple different times, and so I always caution the landowner too, like, hey, don't go around bragging about it, because there are people who will trespass and go out in the middle of the night and dig.
Yeah, they will. Yeah, no doubt.
So how do you weed out those people? Like, have you had any trouble with people like that when you're bringing them onto a property and y'all are doing a pay dig and then they want to come back in the middle of the night when nobody's there?
Yeah, Mason Creek, I had one person that I wasn't for certain if it was him or not, but we had an idea he was going in at night, and so I put up game cameras and stuff like that.
I was going to say, do you want to dox him? But if you're not sure, maybe we won't dox him.
Exactly. It happens, there's...
Skyline would be kind of hard to, if you try to sneak out there in the middle of the night, you're just going to die.
Yeah, exactly. Or if the landowner catches you, he's going to shoot you. That's just point blank,
Yeah.
It's funny because...
I'm still looking forward to meeting y'all are
definitely coming back out because he's wanting to see those tracks and stuff. But
that stuff is mind-blowing, those tracks.
A couple years back on the south end, y'all didn't go to that, but across the river there's a little ranchettes, little 3, 4, 5 acre tracts that people bought vacation stuff for on the river. And on the way down to our south end house, there's a shelter up there. And not many artifacts in it, but there's a few paintings.
Oh,
and
cool.
He was going down to check the house one day, and you can just wade across the river right there.
Right.
And he calls it spaghetti western. He hates it because it's just a bunch of junky little camper trailers and all that stuff, and it kind of messes up the look of the river. Mm-hmm. And he saw this lady up in that shelter because the road goes right by it, so he's like, huh. So he walks up there, and... he says, "Lady, can I help you?" She said, "No, I just about got it. She's chipping out a painting."
Oh, my God.
And he's like, "Just about got it, huh?"
Oh, my God.
Yeah, and that's highly illegal, private or and I would never do that.
Yeah, me either.
And it's a wonder he escorted her back across the river, and it's a wonder he didn't bury her.
Yeah, that's crazy. I can't believe somebody would even do that.
Yeah, and she was doing it in broad daylight. Wow. So yes, you do have your poachers and.
Yeah.
And, just ignorant people like that,
Yeah. So. Well, we're going to take a quick break, turn the air conditioner back on in here, and we'll come back and keep on talking with Mr. Beckham. Snakes!
Technical difficulties flawlessly. 0 mistakes. Brothers of the Serpent podcast. And we're back for the second segment. Just get right back into it here.
Yeah.
We now have the Watcher with us. He was MIA. And he is now back. I think it
was MIN, missing in nap.
Okay.
All right. It's easy to fall asleep in space. You can just float there.
Yeah. How's your 0G bed doing there, buddy?
0G.
I got lost in hypersleep. That's what I'm going with.
All right.
By the way, if anybody has a good suggestion for an alarm clock app, send it in to the Brothers of the Serpent Gmail. That'd be great, because I need a new one.
All right. Well, we'll look for that in the comments section.
Yeah.
Okay. So, we were talking during the break about mound theory, or whatever it is. But I wanted to ask you,
like misconceptions about mounds and stuff like that. Yeah.
What is the Indian mound, in your opinion? What are the theories about it from other people? What have you heard, and what do you think?
Well, the technical terminology of mound scares a lot of people, ticks a lot of people off, I'll get to the story here in a minute, but the true mound builders are your Caddo Indians and everything north, northeast and up.
Yeah.
Now you go out west, you get your what do they call those? The cliff dwellers.
Yes.
Stuff like that.
Like Chaco Canyon. Yeah.
Right. But your true mound builders, those were actually camps, but they were burial mounds as well.
Yeah.
So to me, that's bad juju. It's like going to the Bandera Cemetery and looking for somebody's pocket watch. So it's you know what I mean. It's kind of the way I look at it, but it's
I mean, they built like we visited some when we lived in Georgia, and they were sort of like truncated pyramids. They came up, they were square, flat top.
Yeah.
And they build multiple ones, and they're real high, That type of mound is what you mean, like the mound builders.
And there could be mass burials in there, and they were always somebody important, know. And what they would do is they had huts, they'd bury them, and then build a hut on top of them, know, and then bury someone else, and then build a hut on top of them. And, some of them have a few, bodies in them, and some of them have a lot, you know.
Yeah, and they were layers.
Right.
Yeah.
Stages and but in the hill country, it's always just been called an Indian mound, or camp or whatever. But the true mound that you see, like you were talking earlier, down at Mesa Creek, you didn't see any hump or anything.
Right.
That when you do see those in the hill country, they're called the Midden.
Yeah.
And that was where they cooked their trash pile.
Yeah.
So you dig in those and you're going to find stuff.
Right.
But usually the outside of the mound or midden, proper terminology, is where they camped,
Like around it.
Right, around it. And, you look at when you're digging these camps, middens, you look at the prevailing wind, you're not going to want to camp out where smoke's going to be blowing in your face all day long, so out here southeast side, or the wind comes from the southeast, predominantly. So you look on the opposite side of that.
Right.
And you'll find stuff around them and in them. And I found a lot of stuff right in the middle of the midden.
Yeah.
But it's their trash piles, and that's where you find a lot of bone and stuff like that,
Right.
Where they, because to the Indians, it was easier to make a rock, an arrowhead, than it was to try to save it,
Right.
And they were nomadic, so when they moved on, they just left them there.
Yeah.
And said...
because of the having to pack it?
Yeah, And
so they just took what they could carry and then left the rest behind?
Yeah, exactly. And maybe come back or whatever. But it's funny because my girlfriend, she's from Ohio, and there's a lot of true mounds up there, and she studied a lot of Native American history.
Yeah.
And when I met her...
Serpent Mound in Ohio?
Yes. Serpentine Mound.
As a matter of fact, it is.
Yeah.
And she studied that mound. She lived not too far from there.
Oh, wow.
And when I met her, we're at the bar or whatever, and she says, "So what do you do, for a living?" I said, "Oh, I dig up Indian mounds." And she didn't give me the time of day for like 3 weeks. And I was like, she was like, just looked at me and gave me this disgusted look, and I'm like, "Oh, you must be an archaeologist or something," you know what I mean? So,
I'm at Midden.
Yeah. So a couple weeks later, I meet her again, and I said, "Let me rephrase that," and so I invited her out to Mason Creek too, and anyways, from there, she's still not interested. She likes the arrowheads, but she's not interested in them much. She's not that mad at them.
She wants to dig up people.
Yeah, right. Or bury me, one of the two. You know what I mean? But nah, she's a good girl, and she learned a lot about it, and she taught me some stuff about it too, from the history that she learned and studied.
That's awesome.
But
yeah, I'm obsessed with the Serpentine Mound in Ohio.
Yeah.
I'd like to go see it.
Me too.
We're going to try to go up there soon and visit her family. She said she'd take me to it and stuff.
Cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, my dad got to go see it when he was younger. They lived out there for a little while. It's fascinating. It's like the head of the snake points at this gigantic thing that they call an astrobleme. It's an ancient impact site from a
Oh wow.
like Like, how did they know that? You can't see it.
Yeah.
Like, for one, it's enormous, and number two, like the way they figured out was impact by digging way down and finding the impact structure, the crater structure, like deep underground. So whoever made that mound knew it was there.
And then they just built on top of it.
And it's like the symbolism of the serpent eating the egg is like
that's the
comet or
the comet or the meteor
coming down and hitting the earth.
So it's like,
cool.
Yeah, it's really crazy.
And the head actually points like it's got an alignment that is a solar eclipse predictor.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's dude, that
like
thing.
they like
whoever
this is what we're
built
talking
it,
about, like,
they were astronomers.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
they knew they had the whole like I think it's some 44-year cycle of the moon.
Yeah.
Is all
built
of its
into it.
marks are in the curves of the body.
Yeah. So that's what we
Wow.
mean when we're
It's
saying like
badass.
it's like they're not just butt flappers. You know?
Yeah, no, no,
Like
they-
these guys knew what they were doing. They had science, like serious astronomical science.
Yeah, they, for sure. It's funny you say that because that ranch I used to live on in Comstock, the other ranch, you had to drive through us to get to them.
Yeah.
And it's petroglyphs
Yeah.
on the Pecos River. But what's cool about this is it's hundreds of etched in stone petroglyphs
Yeah.
from weird little tracks to turkey tracks to bear tracks but the two coolest ones to me were arrowheads. And one of them's about 1.5 feet long, and it's a Purdy's point, which is identifiable.
Yeah.
And a Purdy's is actually an arrow point, and a 2-inch one is huge.
Yeah.
But and then right beside it, it's pointing one way, and then right beside it is another arrowhead. I couldn't identify it, but archaeologists had came out there, and they're flat. They're not on the side of a cliff.
Right.
And they said that the Indians thought that the gods and the spirits could see it easier.
Oh, if it was
looking down.
flat, yeah.
Yeah. But those two arrowheads are the winter and summer solstice.
Oh, wow.
And it's cool, and the landowner actually tried it out, and he showed me pictures of his shadow
yeah. The
on
shadows.
that day.
Oh, dude, that's
But-
freaking badass.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can take y'all there. It's all private, no digging or anything like
Yeah.
that. But the landowners, I'm working with them on maybe getting some groups to go out there and just
Man, I would love to see those pictures.
just
Yeah.
camp out on the river
Yeah.
and just see them. It's hundreds of them. It's probably 150 yards by 150 yards of
Wow.
of nothing but etched in stone. They're not painted; they're etched.
Yeah.
Yeah. Assemble the snake force.
Yeah, exactly.
We gotta go.
Exactly. Exactly. So, but yeah, it's pretty cool. You know, like you said, that they were no dummies. You
Yeah.
know, they weren't just butt flappers.
Exactly.
You know, they were.
Yeah. And so Moundsville in Alabama, the place we went there when we were kids, so we didn't know what we were looking at the time. But we've looked at it since on Google Earth. So you're looking down, like if you're the gods, you're looking down at it. And there are all these mounds, but there's also a compass. Okay, there's a formation that basically is it looks like a compass, and it's the actual cardinal directions.
Oh wow.
You know, which is like you have magnetic north, but this is like due north,
Right, which requires astronomy.
which require
Right.
yeah,
Exactly.
So it's like, I mean, we've built a lot of things, like we've done a lot of construction or whatever, and it's difficult to make things that point due north correctly. You know, that have all the, and then it has a perfect 90, so it's going east west exactly right, north south. That's not easy. It's not
No.
easy to do, and they built these gigantic mounds that are pointing in the right ways. It's really awesome.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
I got my son a watch for Christmas one year, and he left it in my hunting box or whatever, my gun case, and so I was digging through there the other day, and I gave it to my girlfriend, and she likes those watches, and it had the north, and
Yeah.
so she puts it on, and it's like, north's not moving. I'm like, no, that watch, I got ripped off. You know what I mean? I needed an Indian to build this watch because it's not.
Yeah, there
You know what I mean? She's like, that's not north. I was like, no, you're right, babe. It's not. You know. Then I told her to put it on the other hand, but and that still didn't work. So, anyways,
It was in there next to your gun for too long.
exactly. Yeah.
It points at the gun now.
Yeah, exactly. But I had to throw that one in there.
Need the Indians to build your watch.
So I wanted to go back to the Midden mounds that we have here. Some of them have burials in them,
Some do. Some do.
and I've heard stories where the burials, they're every story I've heard about a burial, they're in a crouched position, like with their head up, and their knees pulled up to their chest, like almost
like a fetal, but
fetal, but sitting. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a true burial. My mom found one when she was a little girl on their ranch in Rock Springs, and they had him aged and all that stuff. And he was like 20-year-old brave is what the university came back and said.
Okay.
And there was artifacts around him and stuff like that. So he was.
They say how old it was. They're like, no, not how old the guy was.
Yeah,
like, how old is the burial?
Right. Yeah.
He was 20 years old. What?
Yeah. Right. Call the sheriff's office. Yeah. Somebody on a milk carton just got found. You know? That's right. So now, if they did, she didn't tell me.
Okay, yeah.
She didn't remember, and I've come across them before. It's just one of those deals that they're accidents in those middens, and you know. But the ones that I've come across haven't been
the fetal position.
The fetal position. You know, I think those guys were, you know, wrong place, wrong time, and they just threw them in the midden, and you know, they either got eaten or said, "Here, you know, die."
Yeah.
Wait, the guys in the fetal position, or the
No, he's saying the ones that he found that were not in fetal position. They threw them in the midden to get rid of the body.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's really the question that I have: is why are these burials also found in midden? Like the upright?
Because according to, I'm no expert on it, but they claim that a lot of the Indians, especially in this region, the hill country, some buried their dead, but some didn't. You know, you have your cave burials and stuff like that, but they say that the ones that you find in the midden were just not supposed to be there. You know, they weren't part of their tribe, or they weren't, you know, or maybe they were sick or something, and they just threw them in there to because the midden's fire, you know, it's just burnt rock and was their cooking mitt. But from what I've been told, the Indians around here, and I'm not 100% correct on that, put them on the stilts and burned them.
Oh yeah, sky burials.
Burials. Yeah. So
because it's hard to dig here. That's the thing. Like, it's difficult to dig deep unless you go, I guess, down in the riverbed. And even then, it's hard. So, and it'll wash it out. It's down in the riverbed.
Yeah.
So I guess maybe I was assuming that the upright crouched burials that look purposeful were in midden. Because you're saying that the ones that they just toss in there, they're not going to be in a position, in the fetal position like thing. Is that what you're saying? Like, the ones that have been found in midden are typically not in that
position.
I'm not in that position. Okay.
Yeah.
And the ones that have been found like that are not in midden?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, there's a lot of burials that are like that are not in midden. So finding one in a midden is interesting, but it could be. I mean, I don't know. Like that implies like a respectful burial of somebody who you respected.
Exactly.
Whereas if they've just thrown the body into the midden, then it's not something they respected, or for whatever reason.
Yeah,
we're just getting rid of them.
Like, you had to get rid of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But when somebody's buried and you find them in that fetal position and they're facing east or something like
maybe
that.
Those ones that are in the midden were like the criminal amongst the tribe,
could
right?
be,
like somebody murdered somebody or did something wrong, and they're just like,
Yeah. There was a couple found outside of town here several years back, and I was with the guys when they found it, and two of the bodies had arrow points in the body cavity.
Oh, yeah.
The exact same number of arrow points.
Oh, yeah, so it was like a firing squad.
Yeah. Like, you know?
Yeah.
You know, but
when they were bird points? Or?
Yeah,
okay.
They were bird points.
So that was probably a fairly recent.
And they were face down.
Yeah.
And, you know, couldn't tell if their hounds were bound or whatever, but their skulls were bashed in.
Yeah.
So it was somebody that screwed up, you know.
Yeah.
Somehow or another.
Yeah, that was an execution or whatever, yeah.
Yeah.
Man. So maybe that was the situation with the one that I found. Because I found one, but the skull was in pieces. I mean, it was in multiple pieces. But then there were, like, beneath the skull and right nearby were, like, leg and, bones and stuff like that. So I made the assumption that because the skull fragments were on top, and then as I dug down, like, I started finding, limb bones.
Right.
That he was buried sitting up.
Yeah. But it was also in a midden. I mean...
Yeah, I mean, it could be, I guess there's different situations, you know, but There has been true burials up at Hutto. They found 35 bodies on a site right outside of Austin.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, and it was a true burial.
Yeah.
Of course, it was north of Austin, but getting into that Caddo culture, right on the borderline.
Yeah.
So that was a true, burial
Right.
type deal. But
Yeah. So, have you ever done any digs down deep in caves where you have to wear headlamps and everything?
nothing like that.
Okay.
Yeah, nothing. Actually, there was one cave, and I went in there. It's funny. I got a funny story about this one too. But I'm pretty claustrophobic, and this cave, it was one of the ranches that I was trapping on between Sonora and Juneau, Texas. And I found this cave, and it kind of went down.
Yeah.
About 30 feet down. Not at just a straight, sinkhole, but you could walk down its slope, and there was, end debris there, burnt rock, flint everywhere.
Yeah.
And there was a little bitty opening in the back. And if y'all recall the cave y'all were at, Skyline, how that dust or the ash was so close to the ceiling.
Yeah.
I thought it was a secret room, so so my buddy talked me into it, and we crawled in there, and then there was another room, but through experience, this was several years ago, it was so inhabited that ash was to the ceiling.
Yeah.
And it was just one big room, but it was just so...
Yeah.
So I've got this guy that had never hardly even looked for arrowheads. He'd surface hunted or whatever. And he's fumbling around. He was like, "Look at the shoehorn." And I'm like, "Shoehorn?" And we're getting the light. And, of course, it was dark because we kind of crawled through this deal.
Yeah.
And it was a conch shell pendant that looked like a big shoehorn,
Whoa.
And it had all these holes drilled in it. And I'm like, "Whoa, dude,
Shoehorn. Awesome.
Yeah, so...
Moccasin horn.
Yeah. So the funny story was I had a couple buddies, they found out about it, and they was like, "Hey, can we go look in this cave?" And I said, "Yeah, that's fine." And it was raining, and I forgot to tell him about all the javelina that inhabited that cave. And I said, "Man," I got some work to do. I got to go set some traps on another ranch. I'll come back and pick you up in like 3 hours, He was like, "Cool." So and there's no cell signal out there.
Yeah.
And a downpour had come down. And he was madder than hell, man, when I got back. He was like, "You didn't answer your phone, nothing." I was like, "I told you I didn't have cell service." So he's like, "You didn't tell me about all the fleas." He had stripped down to his boxers. Fleas were all in there from the javelina.
Yeah.
And I'd forgotten to mention that part, and I left him out there to be eaten by fleas.
Oh, man.
He never wanted to go arrowhead hunting with me again. But,
Tell him to get some front line.
Yeah,
You should have put some
exactly.
front line on the back of your neck before you went in there.
Exactly. But that's the closest thing to a big cave that you really needed headlights and stuff that
Yeah.
I've ever been in.
So that's
I
another
was thinking
thing.
when you were saying you were claustrophobic, I'm like, you're out there to trap, and then you're like, "I'm trapped."
Yeah, exactly. And that's the way I felt,
That's another strange thing about those shelters. We were talking about this is why we had so much debate
Yeah.
over what was going on in those shelters, because
How do you occupy it all the way to the ceiling?
yeah
Yeah, I've
You
wondered
can't-
that myself.
You can't do that.
They're playing limbo or whatever, to get out of the cave,
I mean, that one area we were digging in, it was literally like 2 or 3 inches from the ceiling.
Yeah.
It's like what is going on?
Unless they were, as the years went on, they moved out closer to the front and
We're
was throwing
pushing
everything
stuff back in there.
pushing everything back, and that
Yeah.
was your final guys in there,
Yeah. Yeah, we talked about like if they were digging it out, they should have been able to push it down the cliff, and I don't know. It was very difficult to understand how they did that. Like,
I mean, a lot of it they did push down the cliff.
Yeah.
There's
Oh,
there's
yeah.
a big
Yeah, the big spill.
spill coming out of it.
Yeah.
But the fact that it's, I mean, I don't know. We were running through theories like left and right the whole time. It was like, how the hell is this even possible? You know?
Yeah, I've seen them like that, and usually when they're that high, close to the ceiling, it's going to be deep.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody's ever hit bottom on that thing yet.
Yeah.
You on that other shelter where that KK come from, I think they went 25 foot deep.
Yeah.
University of Texas did. And
That's deep.
Yeah, they found artifacts up to 10,000 years old.
Yeah.
So lots of years of inhabitation there.
Yeah. They digged into Clovis and then they stopped because that's the first people.
Yeah.
They know this.
So they say, yeah. Yeah. Now there's new theories.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying, like,
older stuff.
they dig down, they find Clovis stuff, and that's it.
Yep.
You don't dig any farther down.
Yep,
because
we're done.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, you have to wonder how deep it really is.
oh, yeah.
25 feet's a long way down.
Yeah, and I ain't digging 25 feet.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all by hand too. You can't
Yeah.
get a skid steer up there.
Yeah.
No. But I think the deepest paleo find site recorded, from what I've been told, is 33 and a half feet. And
Yeah.
I think it's off of Cibolo Creek there in San Antonio, the sand pit.
33
So,
feet.
Yeah.
33 feet. Yeah, that sounds like the right number.
That's
Yeah.
right.
So it's a sand pit. Like it was. There was some big flood that just covered it in silt and sand.
Yeah, that's what I'm guessing. This guy, it was a gravel pit, sand pit, and he was paying his workers like $20 an arrowhead that would come out. They were digging, and he was a collector.
Oh, yeah.
And it was all these Clovis and Folsom points
Man.
rolling out. And he's paying them like $20-$25 a pop. You know, these Spanish guys and that work for him, and they're making, you know, Budweiser money, you know.
Yeah.
So the funny thing was one of them went to an artifact show and realized what those actual
what they're
points
actually
were
worth.
going for. And so you start seeing these guys that don't speak any English showing up to these artifact shows and selling these $5,000-$6,000 points.
Oh, man.
Well, he caught on, and of course they all got fired. And
Yeah.
but yeah, 'cause they were pocketing them. The rumor has it, and which, you know,
Yeah.
can't blame them.
Can't blame him. Can't blame him.
So, but yeah, that was it was some sort of gravel pit. Maybe a flood
Yeah.
had covered it up, and that's why it was so deep. You know,
Yeah.
who knows?
That's just
wild.
crazy to think that, you know, that skyline shelter is 25 feet of occupation layers.
Oh, yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, I know that, you know, even on top, there's some big boulders, so you know that there has been some collapse.
Oh, sure.
So maybe, you know, maybe it's some of that is from some of the collapse off the cliff face, and so it builds up a little faster than just the occupation layers. But still, I mean, the spill coming off the side of that thing just blew my mind.
yeah, I mean, what's that? 65 yards?
Yeah.
straight down.
Yeah.
And who's to know that
Yeah. How far back
From the
that goes.
bottom.
Yeah.
that could have been the very bottom of that shelter, and
Yeah.
it just
Yeah,
you know,
like
straight
just a
up from
few
the
feet
creek.
above the rivers where they started, and
Yeah.
Yeah, and just kept on going and going and going and going and going.
damn it,
You know,
gotta go back there, man. We so want to go back. But I'm actually like the longer it's been, like we were all talking about, oh man, we gotta go dig that skyline shelter next time. But I'm kind of like, I've been thinking about the first one, you know, the cabin shelter or whatever. I've been calling it the Eagle's Nest.
the Eagle's Nest. Yeah, yeah.
I want to go back there because they've, you know, so many people have done so much work and gotten so far down already. It's like, maybe stick with that one and just
Yeah,
keep going.
That one surprised me. I went in there and I scratched around. I had a couple buddies come out and we dug for probably about a day, and I think one arrowhead come out, and then the second day, about probably an hour before they had to leave, we hit 21 points.
Oh my God.
Just like bam, 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 bam. I'm
Wow.
like, what the heck, you know? And then so I had another group come in, and they went a little deeper, and they started hitting arrowheads. And then the third group come in, and then they started hitting the organic material, the matting and the stuff like that. So the bone awls, and
Yeah.
it was pretty cool. And then I'm like, maybe I ought to dig this thing myself here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But no, I enjoy watching people find. I've found thousands of arrowheads, and that's why I turned it into a business. You know,
Yeah.
and you won't ever see me dig with y'all. You know,
Yeah.
most of my time, because it looks bad if someone's paying money to dig and then I find the best point or something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
So
So you dig when we're all sleeping.
Yeah. I'll let y'all get to the depth where the points are coming and say time's up, and then I'm in right behind.
That's why you're sleeping out in the truck.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
This guy's hardcore. Like, he would just crash out in the bed of his truck. Like, come out there and he's just in his sleeping bag out there. I'm like, hey man, you want some tacos? He's like, yeah, let me roll out of this taco and I'll come inside.
Right. Exactly.
Man, that place was just so badass, dude. Like, I don't even. It's like,
Yeah, I want to go back because I want to do more exploring.
Oh yeah,
I had a blast doing that, and there's just so much crazy geology, and I'm really interested in that stuff too.
Yeah, there's some really cool stuff out there, and there's another ranch I can probably get y'all on that has some really cool stuff on it too.
Awesome.
It's on the Pecos River, but
Yeah.
that ranch, that particular ranch y'all were on, was there. There's actually caves I haven't been in. I've spotted them with audhead hunters, and I'm like, whoa, where'd this guy come from? You know?
Yeah.
And then I'll take the hunter. Hey guys, let's go look and see if there's any audhead in this cave over here. You know, so one of those deals and walk around. But that's how I found a lot of those caves out there.
Yeah. Yeah, just going for hunts.
Mm-hmm. And there's one that I have not been in yet. So maybe when y'all come out, I'll save it. We'll all go in.
That would be awesome.
And I know for a fact I can see the spillage just barely, you know, with binoculars.
Yeah.
that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, we get some pictures of a untouched cave because it's like one of the things we talked about is like every experience we have going to see something new, like even going out to Mason Creek and seeing the ground all dug up there and just seeing those layers down in there, it broadens your perspective on what was actually going on.
Yeah.
Seeing the Skyline shelter for the first time just blew my mind that something of that magnitude was, it's just huge.
Yeah.
I've just never seen anything like it, so I love seeing those things, both the one that was dug and the one that wasn't dug, because you can it gives you a broader perspective as to what.
And there's also
out
no
there.
telling how actually huge it is because it's
I
so
know.
deep. Like,
Yeah.
you dig down far enough and find tunnels going back actually into the hill. There's no way to know.
Yeah.
What blows my mind is how many people were actually there at one time.
Yeah.
Because it's big, but it's not
That big.
to have a whole city there.
Right.
But yet there's 10,000 years of occupation.
Yeah.
Was that 10,000 different generations of 20 people, 50 people, 100 people? What was the...
Yeah, what was the size of the group that was camped there? Yeah.
Right. And then just further down where I did that one site, the big open area, did y'all ever get to walk up there?
Yeah, where we surface hunt a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a huge
Yeah, it was a huge site, and it's
Yeah.
just a couple hundred yards from there. So, I'm sure there's more sites all up and down that river. So,
Yeah. So we were talking about this, so you have these way up on these cliff sides, because it's pretty far up, that that Eagle Nest. It's pretty far up there, and it's a climb up from the riverbed. But you're finding the kind of points you're finding there are the same as what you're finding down in these mounds down the bottom. Mm-hmm. So we were talking about this, could it be that there were certain people that lived in the shelter, and then there was this camp where everybody else was, because they're the same points.
yeah, that's what I would say. It's the same people.
Yeah.
And the same time areas. It's just maybe different little neighborhoods, so to speak,
Yeah.
And some
That was
more
shaman
fortunate.
school up there in the cave.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I think y'all mentioned that.
Yeah.
That's what we decided it was, because it was like we were trying to decide whether maybe the water table was up higher when they lived in the cave, but then we realized that the artifacts we're finding down at the riverbed are the same. So if the dating is right, or at least that they're the same, so they couldn't be thousands of years apart.
Right.
Yeah, no, I mean, they're...
So and then we took the measurement with the GPS from the top of the hill, then all the way down to the riverbed, and it was 600 feet or something.
Wow.
So we were thinking the Eagle's Nest is maybe 400 feet above the Devil's River.
Yeah.
In elevation, because we don't go down that far.
Right.
To get to that. So it's like whoever was staying up there was they were hardcore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were that, and so that's why we started calling it Shaman School, because the shaman's
Right.
the guy. He's the real nerdy guy that knows science and he can make baskets and
Yeah,
Right.
That's why he has the bone awls and the paintbrushes and all
Yeah,
that stuff
exactly,
up there. Yeah. He's up there like teaching shaman school, you
Right.
know? And everybody else down there, they're just making arrowheads and hunting stuff.
Right, exactly.
But of course, like in the Midden mounds down by the river, they may have had all the same sort of organic stuff, but it wouldn't be preserved. 'Cause it's
Yeah.
not
Right,
in that
right.
shelter.
It won't be preserved there.
Yeah.
Something about that ash.
Preserves it, yeah.
Preserves it.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, dry ash.
Yeah, dry ash and like the there's a lot of insects that don't like it.
Yep.
Yeah. And it's anaerobic. You know, it like volcanic ash preserves things fantastically. So you know that too.
Right, exactly.
You know, so
That's
like Pompeii.
Yeah, that's the other confusing thing about it is that how are they living in a cave that they were burning in?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, that's the thing that I don't get either. I mean,
Yeah.
there was a one of the diggers. He found a squirrel 4 foot down that still had hair on it, fur on it. Wow. He even named it. I think he named it Clint or something like that. And I'm like, man, thanks, buddy. And he had it in his little baggie and carried it home, put it in his frame. I'm like, dude, you're just weird, you know. But
maybe that's what that skull is that I have, because we found Russ and I found a skull and like some jawbones like in this one little spot he was digging, and I kept them all.
Except for the backbone. I have a video of you throwing that away.
Right. Yeah, it's probably a squirrel.
yeah, might have been part of Clint's backbone there, you know.
It's Clint's brother.
Yeah. But
Yeah, we thought it was a cat or something. Yeah, it was hard to tell. I think did Brenner find the claw?
I don't know.
I've got a video of that too. Somebody found the claw of whatever that thing was.
Oh well,
One
we
of them.
found out that was actually a tooth.
No, like you could see the hair and the three claws.
yeah, that's
on it.
right. Yeah, that was
Yeah.
Brenner. I think
Yeah.
so.
yeah, you find some weird stuff in those caves and shelters, little bird bones and
Yeah.
the little mice teeth and all that stuff, you know.
Yeah. You ready for a break?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Turn that AC on.
Turn that AC on. We're going to take another break. We'll come back for the second half of the show. Indian Mounds tied behind our back just to make it square. This is Brothers of the Serpent podcast. Second hour, first segment. And we are in studio with Mr. Clint Beckham, who is he takes people on hunts and for oddads and arrowheads, and sometimes he shoots doves to piss off his girlfriends. Shooting down the symbol of peace with a shotgun. Nothing better than that.
So we talked a lot about the artifacts. I want to hear some hunting stories. You told us some pretty good ones.
Yeah.
You do these hunts for ranchers. You talked about the Aoudad ones, but you also, we just briefly mentioned the government trapping.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, how did you get into all that? And
Well, I started out. I've always hunted as a kid and growing up and working on ranches and stuff. And I was in the restaurant business for about 20 years, managing high volume restaurants all over the state of Texas, and it just got old. The stress level was crazy, and they own you as a manager. You know, I did better bartending and waiting tables. Well, a government trapping job came open, and out in Comstock, Texas, and my buddy's dad was going to be my boss, so he got me in the door, and I left $75,000 a year pay salary from a restaurant in San Antonio to $24,000 a year to kill stuff, trap predatory animals. And it was a fun job. It lasted about 2 or 3 years, but then it got too political all the animal rights activists and stuff like that, and we had to record everything, how many traps and snares we set up, and it was just a pain. And then I met that one particular landowner that I was talking about shooting all the aoudad on.
Yeah.
So I started doing those aoudad hunts, and as a government trapper, you're not supposed to have another job, you know.
Wow.
So I was making more money doing that than I was there. And another thing I didn't like is these animals. You know, I love animals as much as anyone else, but we'd trap these magnificent bobcats, you know, and of course they were killing deer or livestock or whatever, but we could not utilize their hide. You know, a lot of people will sell the hides for the fur market, and we would get fired if we got caught doing it. We were supposed to scar them up, which is the stupidest thing.
Oh, man.
I mean, they wanted us to take a knife and just rip them apart and hang them on a fence. I was like, you know, that's just unethical in so many ways.
Yeah.
And so I left that, and then I started doing the aoudad hunting thing, and then picked up a few ranches here and there for axis hunting, and then doing the whitetail hunting, and kind of the same concept as the arrowhead hunting. You know, I've found thousands of arrowheads, and I've shot hundreds of deer and animals, and I enjoy it and respect the animals, but it's population control and for food. Type deal,
and it's also a way for these people that have a lot of land to recoup some of their tax money.
Oh,
probably,
absolutely,
right?
Absolutely.
If they don't live there, I mean, there's a lot of ranchers out here that people just have property passed down to them, so it's a good way for them to get some income on their property.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's animal control. You know, just like a city gets 20 million people, and what's going to happen? You know.
Yeah.
And same thing with animals. They're fighting. It's better to be hunted and managed than it is to die of starvation because they're eating each other out of house and home.
Right.
You know, they're competing for food. You know?
They get overpopulated, and then they eat everything, and then there's a famine, and then they get some kind of disease, and then they all die.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so anyways, that's how I got started in the hunting deal. Just loved it, and found a way that if I could make money at it and guiding people and enjoying other people.
Yeah.
You know,
except for some people.
I'm going to say, watch the mic stand right there on your foot.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you say government trapper, were you doing it at like state natural areas, like government, like parks and wildlife?
No, it was all private land. And what it is I was employed by Texas A&M, and each landowner would pay, say one guy had 5,000 acres, and they would pay Texas A&M, say, 10 cents an acre for me or another guy to come in and trap. So they could put 2 acres in, or they could put the whole 5,000 acres. And it was a year deal.
Yeah.
So I had almost 300,000 acres of 20 different ranches that I trapped.
Wow.
And it was, it was fun.
Yeah.
But it just didn't pay enough for the headache.
Yeah.
A lot of walking too.
Yeah, a lot of walking. I got stories about walking. But,
We have a lot of stories about walking too.
yeah. But my probably favorite one is I was on the Devil's River, and when I got this job, they gave me a boat and some beaver traps and all this stuff, and I'm like, you know, because they provided our equipment and our vehicles, and I'm like, why do I need a boat in the middle of West Texas? And they said, oh, you're trapping beaver. I was like, how are beaver in West Texas, you know? That's something in Montana or up, you know, East Texas or whatever.
Yeah.
And they said, oh, yeah, they're all on the Devil's River. And I'm like, okay, yeah, right, whatever, you know. Probably nutri-rats or something, you know. And so my first beaver to catch was I set my trap and everything. I'm thinking, this is stupid, you know. Why am I even doing this, you know?
So what trees are they chewing down?
Yeah. And there were trees chewed down, and I was like, man, I got to see one of these guys. So I set this trap, and I spent a lot of time on the river, and there were some kayakers coming through, and they were kayaking by as I was pulling up my trap, and there's this beaver. He comes up. It was a conibear trap, and I'd caught him by the tail. It had missed his body. So when I pulled him up, he like did a sit-up and hissed at me with these hideous teeth, and I'm like, whoa, there are beavers here, And these people were coming by, and, I hope I don't offend anyone, but I call them tree huggers. Yeah. But they were coming by.
What trees are they hugging out
there? Exactly. And so they were like, so what are you doing over there? I said, oh, trapping beaver. They were like, oh, cool, so you're relocating them. I was like, yeah, relocating them. And they got about
to the ground.
And they got about 20 yards down the way, and I went, pow, pow. I was like, to the other side. I hollered at them. And I could hear them. I think they called me some choice words, and they just kept on paddling. And I was like, oh, there we go. But, I had to deal with some of that stuff. But it was a fun job,
Yeah. That's awesome. Hunting beaver in Texas.
Yeah.
So do you have people wanting to hunt like mountain lions or anything like that too?
Yeah, you get a few people. The part about hunting mountain lions is you have to have a good set of dogs, unless you just stumble across them.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
They're very easy to trap, but they're elusive. The mountain lion makes us around 17 to 21 days. There's been several caught in that cave, the Skyline Cave, and you just set a blind set, and they come in, and you don't know if you're going to catch them in 17th day, 21st day, or the 3rd day,
I've heard they have they have 5 square miles of territory each one or whatever.
I mean, they can roam in that 21 days up to 75 mile round. And where a mountain lion has been 100 years ago, a mountain lion will come today. So it's like they know.
Crazy.
Magnets.
Yeah. So, but I've only caught one, and it was summertime. And he was dead in the trap from stress and everything, so I didn't get to shoot him live. But, some people want to do mountain lion hunts, but if you have dogs, it's better. Yeah. But in this or that area, it's very arid, so it's hard on a dog to keep a trail up.
Oh, yeah.
To catch the scent. You want those moisture areas like up in New Mexico and stuff like that.
So this may be a weird question, but have you ever been asked to or been around or involved in any kind of search for missing people? Anything like that? Or have you ever been somewhere where somebody gets lost and you can't find them and anything like that?
Me.
I've been the missing guy.
Yeah. I've got two bad. One of them went horribly wrong, and the other one could have went even worse. Yeah. One, I had a guy, it was me, him, and his son. We were hunting Aoudad, and his son, he had just got through, he owned a company, and he was very stressed out and was over the telephone, and he was like, man, I mean, he was just chewing this guy's rear end up and down. Yeah. And I'm like, man, you're on the hunt, relax, Yeah. Leave your business at home. And he said, yeah, you're right. And we walked along, and then we didn't walk maybe 300-400 yards, and we saw a group of Aoudad, and his son shot one and wounded it. Well, he said, I'm just going to sit here and glass. Y'all go down and glass meaning,
with binoculars,
Yeah, so we got down and followed the blood trail, and we jumped this sheep, this Aoudad, and he ran up in the canyon, and he laid down, and I told that kid, I call him kid, he was 20 years old. Yeah. I said, let's just come back later in the morning. Yeah. He'll lay down. We don't want to push him, because then we've got a wounded ram that we're chasing for 5 million miles, you know. And we came back, and his dad was dead.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. His binos and gun and cap were laying all nice and neat, but it looked like he had laid down and taken a nap. Yeah. And unresponsive, and we tried everything, and we were only gone maybe 30 minutes, so we don't know if it happened
right after you left,
after we left, or when. But pretty weird, because probably an hour before that, the guy told me, he said, before I die, I want to see this Devil's River.
Oh, yeah.
And so I took him to the bluff, and before all that, and we drove to the bluff. I said, there it is. He's like, cool. He's like, maybe tomorrow we'll go spend some time down there. I was like, yeah. So anyways,
it was
crazy.
Weird deal. And then the next one was when I ran out of water. Me and a doctor and that was pretty scary.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we were out in Van Horn, Texas, and we'd shot this ram from a roughly 1,000-foot cliff, and there was no way down to it from that access, so we had to backtrack about 4 hours down off the mountain and around along the Rio Grande, and by the time we got to the Aoudad, it was like a 90-something degrees, but by the time we'd gotten to it, it was probably 6 o'clock in the afternoon, and I had one bottle of water.
Oof.
And luckily, the client was a doctor. He was an anesthesiologist, but he was a doctor.
Yeah.
And so I caped the animal out, and I put it on my pack, and the river had flooded, and I was pretty exhausted at that point.
Yeah.
And we had about 7.5 miles out. And I told him, I said, look, man, we can go over the mountain the way we just came, and I've got 60 pounds on my back, and you've got all your gear, and it's steep.
Yeah.
Or we can try to follow the river.
Yeah.
And it was flooded. But anyways, at about, we decided to go the river route, and it was just brush, nothing but mesquite thorns. And down in that flat, it was flooded, and the mosquitoes were everywhere. And he saw me start shutting down. I got the chills. Got delirious, all that good stuff.
But you got the chills and it was hot?
Yeah. It was, I quit urinating, quit sweating.
Yeah.
And he said, you wait here. And I asked him, I said, man, if we can just get over this hill, I can make it. I said, can you carry my pack? And he put it on. He's like, no way. No way am I carrying 70 pounds on my back. And I was like, all right. And he was a little bigger dude than me,
Yeah.
And so I said, that's cool. He said, just wait here. So he went down the river, and he came back with a Gatorade bottle full of muddy water with mosquito larvae in it. And he said, you need to drink this. I was like, dude, I don't know about this, man. And he says, no, I have a life straw. So he broke out the life straw, and you can get them at like Academy for like $20, and they filter water
while you're drinking it.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And so I drank that, and we sat there for about an hour, and he would go back down the river, and he got me hydrated. Me and him were taking turns out of that one. Luckily he had it in his pack.
Yeah.
And then the whole way out, we would stop, and we were on our hands and knees sharing that life straw to get water.
Wow.
And by the time we got out of there, it was like 2 o'clock in the morning, and still had chills.
Yeah.
And but that life straw saved both of our lives.
Wow.
I can guarantee you that.
That's crazy.
It was real crazy.
Yeah, that's wild.
So if somebody shoots an animal way out there, how do you get it back? I mean, what is
I pack it out,
Damn.
Yeah.
Yeah. Believe me, there's lots of times I'm like, please miss, please miss, please miss. You know what I mean?
Dude.
But I've packed them up to, I think my longest pack's about 9 miles.
Jesus. Oh my God. That's crazy, dude.
Yeah.
But
I didn't know that.
yeah,
It's time to call in the helicopters is what I'm saying.
Yeah, exactly. Run,
Yeah. Let's get into skid steer and for arrowheads.
Yeah.
Oh, man, I'm packing 90 pounds out of it, whatever. Screw that. That's terrible.
But it's some of them capes they do they're heavy. A lot of people won't eat Aoudad. Some people will, and some people won't. And I've had guys that are like, man, we're going to take all the meat home. I'm like, all right. You're packing the meat out,
Yeah. Okay, so when you say a cape, you get
That's the skin and the head.
You take the skin and so you do the field dressing or whatever they call it, like you skin it. And,
Yeah, I do it all for them, Axis deer, you cape them out for them to mount it, and then the meat and all that good stuff. Yeah, I do it all. It's all the service, kind of like the arrowheads, I'm digging for them,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
Wow. Cape.
Yeah.
Just put the head on your head and it's a cape.
Yeah, exactly. Look like Sitting Bull.
Now, how would you do that if you're like, up north and it's like a moose?
Actually, I've never done that, and I got invited to go to Alberta this year
Oh, yeah.
to do a moose hunt, and what they
You're like,
do.
I am not keeping that out of here.
Yeah.
They use pack animals, though, right? I mean,
Yeah, some use pack animals, and then some, especially where the wolves and the bears are real bad, they have meat bags, and they'll hang them in trees.
Yeah.
And they'll make trips back and forth.
Okay, yeah.
You know, a hindquarter of a moose, from what I've never killed one, but from what I understand, can weigh up to a couple 100 pounds.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, they're huge. They're enormous, yeah. I mean, even an elk is
yeah.
is pretty freaking big.
That's why I've never been moose or elk hunting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Forest horses.
Yeah. And I've never
Giant forest horses.
Yeah. I've never even killed an aoudad. You know, I've got 157 under my belt,
Yeah.
and I've never pulled the trigger, but I had a suppressor company, Silencer Co., out of San Antonio. They build suppressors.
Yeah.
They called me up just a couple weeks ago, and they said, hey, have you killed an aoudad yet? Because they brought Chad Mendez, the MMA fighter, out to the Skyline, and we did a show out there. And I said, no, I hadn't. They said, we just think that's weird that you've killed 157 for everyone else, but you've never pulled the trigger. And they said, how would you like to shoot one? I was like, well, I don't know. What do you mean? They said, we want to film you shooting an aoudad this October. And I said, well, even though it's our ranch and we get the money, I said, I ain't paying $4,000 to shoot an aoudad.
Yeah.
And they said, no, we're paying for you.
Ah.
And I said, okay, now we're talking. I get some of the profit, and I get to shoot an aoudad and be filmed and be a hero, you know? So,
Hell yeah.
yeah.
So that's happening in October this year?
Yeah, October 14th.
That's badass.
Look at
And
that.
I'm going to use their rifles and their suppressors and all their gear, and, you know.
So you're going to shoot it like James Bond style.
Yeah.
All right, well,
Exactly.
you heard it here first, folks.
That's right.
Future star.
Yeah, future star right
Exactly.
now.
Yeah.
Exactly. So,
So yeah, once that gets out, then you'll already have his contact info.
That's right.
And
Yep.
go on a hunt.
That's
go
right.
dig some arrowheads. Trust me, it's way more fun to dig up arrowheads than it is to pull a trigger.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. For one thing, you could find more than one arrowhead per trip.
Yeah, exactly.
Probably not going to pull the trigger more than once per trip.
Exactly. Well, you'd be surprised. I've seen some guys that pulled the trigger unintentionally. Had a guy,
Well, I mean, to kill something.
right, to kill, yeah.
Yeah. You might pull the trigger a lot, but you're only going to kill one thing.
This guy, funny story. This guy, we were hunting in Van Horn, and I spotted this ram, and he had only killed a hog or something, no big game yet. And
Yeah.
of course, he got buck fever or the jitters or whatever, and this aoudad, it was on a little plateau, maybe 150 yards wide, and then it dropped off in the canyon. It was just a flat plateau.
Yeah.
And he would shoot in front of this aoudad, and it would turn and go the other way, and he'd shoot in front of it again. And I'm like, miss, right, left, miss, you know. After 5 rounds, you know, his magazine, he looked like the Apaches were after him because he was fumbling and bullets were falling everywhere. And I was like, whoa, man, let me load your gun before you get to put one in backwards, you know. So, and he
Shoot
went
yourself in the face.
yeah, he went 2 rounds of 10. The 11th round, he finally hit it.
Wow.
And wounded it, and I said, man, let me have your gun. I got this for you, you know. And put it out. That's the only time I've ever shot an aoudad was put it out. You know, but, yeah, I mean, I was looking around thinking the Apaches were after us too, you know what I mean? 'Cause,
Arrows are...
yeah. He couldn't get them loaded fast enough, but each to their own.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I know that. I remember the feeling in the first time you go and you're like, you put it up and you're like, I can do this.
Yeah.
You start shaking, yeah.
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 Yep. Yep. So, we talk on this podcast. We talk a lot about ancient history and just the mystery of stuff. And like, so what do you think about the new? How long have you thought, or have you thought that there was stuff older than Clovis here? Like, what do you think about that whole deal? Like, you know, the Clovis first people that are just like for like 150 years they've been, you know, holding forth on like there's nothing here before Clovis. Those people that came across the Bering Land Bridge. And like now they've got the evidence. Like there's in the museum that we have here in town, they've got this giant bone that has tool marks on it that was dated to 22,000 years ago. Which
Right.
Is, you know. So what do you think about all that stuff?
Oh, I think it's legit. You know, I mean, it has to be.
Yeah.
You know, the Clovis evolved into the Clovis people.
Yeah.
And, I think, I don't know if this is proper terminology, but caveman,
Yeah.
were different than the Clovis people, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I've seen some older artifacts that they say are older, like you said, that are not as precise, not as defined, and they were tools, so they just wasn't evolved enough to,
the skills hadn't built the skills up.
Yeah, they hadn't built the skills up. They weren't masters at it yet.
Yeah, because some of the Clovis pieces are just freaking masterpieces. They're just absolutely gorgeous. Yeah.
Do you think
doubt.
that, like, they're basically the best, like the most artistic, or
I think
the most
Clovis
well-made?
people, and then probably your archaic people. The 4,000 or 6,000 year time period.
Okay.
Now there's new studies saying that the Clovis people didn't come from the Bering Strait.
Oh yeah.
They're saying that they found Cumberland points and Clovis points and paleo stuff up in upper state New York and all that stuff.
Oh shit! All
that
the way
are
off
like
the East Coast.
15,000
Oh wow.
years old. So now somebody's trying to turn it around.
Yeah.
This came out a couple years back that the Clovis people left here and went over there.
That's awesome.
So you can probably Google that and figure out that article.
yeah.
It's pretty interesting article.
That is awesome.
So we had our own theories and discussions about why those artifacts are so badass, and then they seem to decline. It's like you have the Clovis artifacts, all these points that are just ridiculously badass, and then you start going forward in time, and they lose that ability,
Right.
and they get worse and worse, and then I guess what you're saying is eventually maybe 5,000 years later they get better again.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's, you have a lot of preforms and stuff like that and just ugly arrowheads.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of that is the material they had to work with.
Right.
Because you'll see a crooked arrowhead, or like you were talking earlier, you know, but it may have a hinge on there, which is a stack of the flint, and they knew that if they napped it, it would break it.
Oh.
So they'd say, well, we'll use it for something, it's got ears, and, you know, it may be a stunner or something like that,
Ow.
Yeah. It's not going to stick in him, but it's going to knock him out, so then he can whop him with the club or something,
A stunner. That's great.
But I think a lot of that's the material, too. You see, I think they've always had the craftsmanship, every one of them. It's just maybe the material, and or maybe ignorance too.
Yeah,
but
I was also thinking of because over time and climate will get colder and warmer or whatever. So you have periods of surplus, and then you have periods of where you don't have very much. And so if you don't have, if you're if you're actually spending all of your time trying to get food, then you don't have as much time to sit there and make these badass.
Or
arrowheads.
get badass at making
Right,
them,
or get badass
Right.
at making them right, or people die faster, and or
Yeah, so they
there's
don't-
we know that disease came through, and wiped out 3/4 of the population of Europe,
Right.
and the same thing happened here. There's more and more evidence coming out that before the Europeans came here and brought plague to these people, they had their own problems with plagues, like coming up through from the south and just tearing through everybody and killing everybody off, and then the next people show up and occupy the same sites. Right, which is why you'll have these multiple occupation layers with different styles and everything, because for whatever reason, those people that were occupying it at that time all died, or they left and never came back. But then eventually somebody does come back, finds that site, and occupies it again.
oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Even to modern day,
Yeah.
you'd be surprised how many old homesteads in the hill country are built right on top of Indian camps.
Dude, that's what we got.
Yeah, we always say
We've
that.
been working on these ranches for so long, and time again, we'll be finding flakes, we'll be finding points. It's where is the freaking mound?
Yeah.
And we're looking all over the place, and then right before we leave, it's oh shit, the mound is under the house.
Yeah, exactly. Because when whoever came in the late 1800s, you know, they camped because there was a spring there.
Yeah.
Yep.
There was game there, and they probably saw the Indian camp, said, hey, if the Indians camped here,
This is a good place to
and
camp.
they're all gone now.
Yeah.
hopefully.
Yeah.
And,
Or else you're gonna be gone.
Yeah. We're just going to build a house right here and,
Yep.
Yeah, that's why we say people live in the same places.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But I like your idea of the longevity aspect of the quality of arrowheads. So if people can live longer, then obviously you're going to get better and better at whatever craft.
Right, and you also have, more time to pass it down to the
more
next
time
guy.
to teach.
Yeah.
And so, of course, if there's a period of time where multiple generations are living longer lives,
Yeah.
then the craftsmanship's going to get way better very quickly.
Yeah.
Because
sure.
one person in a long life can get good, and then they can teach the young person
So that he can start with the
and start, standing on the shoulders of giants.
Right.
Literally. But yeah, so then, something happens with the climate or whatever, conditions end up being that they have shorter lives. So they don't get a chance to get better, and they don't get as much time to teach. And so the quality of their craftsmanship goes down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a great idea.
That and the material, some of those guys may have had to go 500 miles just to get material.
Right.
Right.
So if it was a hard winter,
Yep.
Yep.
Trading is less
the
likely
trading,
and everything,
in a period where people are living shorter lives, the trade routes and the things are less occupied. So that good material is not being passed along, and the knowledge of places where or how to get the good material or what good material looks like.
Right.
Because who can teach you? Like for me, it's like I've been finding flint for years and years, but only beginning to nap have I learned that you got to get this better material.
Yeah.
And I don't know where to find it because I haven't spent a lot of time thinking what is an area that has good material look like, or where would I most likely find deposits of good material, right?
Yeah.
So those are also
Yeah, is it up high? Is it down low?
right. Those are also
Yeah.
skills and that's knowledge that would be passed down from people who had the experience.
Yeah, so in Big Bend, there's a place called Apache Canyon. I don't know if you're. Yeah, it's kind of a hike. It's like a 7-mile round trip or whatever, and it's a huge mine. And we went out there one time, then almost died, but I ran out of water that time. It was stupid. But we went out there and it was an enormous canyon, and there was just all this crazy flint, and you could see that it was the same thing as the shelters out there. This huge scream things coming down the hill where they had obviously been doing this either on a massive scale or for thousands and thousands of years.
I mean, they were freaking boulders of flint.
Yeah.
Like the side of that cliff wall, and you could tell it looked like it had been scorched
Yeah,
and burned.
scorched and burned and cracked and
yeah. So that's what they were doing is they were harvesting it. I call those flint quarries.
Yeah, that's exactly. It was a quarry. Yeah, it was crazy, and that stuff was so.
I totally script-hearted it, dude. Connor was like, yeah, this is a flint. I'm like, bullshit. It totally was.
It totally was. The flint was light, and just every break was smooth and glassy, and it was it was a yellowish color. It was this bright. From what I remember, this bright.
Yeah,
it was
there was
incredibly
yellow and
light.
red.
It was. I'd never seen anything like it. It was amazing.
Yeah.
I've never seen any artifacts made out of it, but they must be out there because that stuff is everywhere.
Oh yeah. I mean, they made them out of petrified wood up in East Texas. Seriously, petrified palm wood, whatever their resources were, but the petrified wood ones are. I mean, they're not real precise. I mean, you can tell they're an arrowhead, and they're cool and they're pretty, but they're not the quality.
Yeah. I could carve wood, so surely I could make an arrowhead out of this petrified wood, right?
Break your flint knife trying to carve the wood to make one,
Yeah.
So speaking of the quality, when it comes to pricing an arrowhead, is the type of flint also a big factor? I mean, obviously that plays a factor in how well it's made, but if you did find something that was made out of a strange rock or a gem, or some semi-precious stone, is it the rareness of just the type, or is it mostly the workmanship and all that?
It's a lot of the workmanship. All factors go in there. The workmanship, the type of material, the length on a lot of things, because and I'll get to that here in just a second, and the type of points. But for instance, a pertinalis, people see these arrowheads and they're 5 inches long. That didn't go on a stick, you know. And,
Yeah.
You know, it just it dropped, you know, 2 feet down. You know, it's too heavy, you know.
Yeah.
Especially on one of those little reed arrow shafts that we were finding in the cave. But
Yeah.
those were atlatl projectile points,
Right.
You know, dart points, what they call them. But the Pertinalis was that, and its original length was almost 6 inches, maybe a little more.
Yeah.
And those were knives. So knives or atlatl points, but when it would break,
They'd fix it.
they'd fix it, rework it.
Yeah.
And, you know, just you break your pocket knife, sure, you can put it on a grinder and sharpen it back up. But eventually, when it gets down to an inch or so, you don't have a very good pocket knife, you know?
Yeah.
So that's what those guys, they just chunk them.
Right.
You know? So they call it first stage, never used. So that makes a difference, you know?
Yeah,
if you
first stage.
find a 6-inch Pertinalis, that guy dropped it or used it very little, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know, but
Got lost and died.
yeah, exactly. Or got eaten by the dinosaurs. Or didn't have his life straw or something, you know.
Yeah.
So
He was looking for pterodactyl claws.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. But it's so several different aspects go to that as far as the value.
Also, the length, like the longer some artifact is, the less likely it is to be whole, just because it's more likely to be broken.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. There's you were talking about the material, some gem or whatever. I went to an artifact show, and this was found in South America somewhere, maybe Mexico City, but it was a huge knife. And it was probably 12, 13 inches long, and it had these little hooks, and it's just awesome.
Yeah.
But it was made out of jade.
Oh my god.
And it was cool, and I think it was appraised at like $75,000, and that was 10 years ago.
Yeah. Jade.
So,
Good
yeah.
grief.
Dude, well, I want to definitely talk more about these rare artifacts and stuff. We got to take a break.
Yep.
And the watcher has lost audio, but flawlessly handling all technical difficulties. 0 mistakes.
That's right.
Right.
We'll be back.
But 2 snakes.
Yeah, 0 mistakes. Welcome back to Brothers of the Serpent podcast. We are still in studio with Clint Beckham talking about all kinds of badass ancient artifacts and how to die in the woods.
How to die in the woods.
But yeah, I wanted to continue on just the details of these different artifacts, because I never heard that. What'd you call it? First
stage.
First stage.
Staging.
First stage,
Yeah, I didn't know about the stages either. That's cool.
Yeah. So, also like rare artifacts, like eccentrics, I think they're called.
Yeah,
right?
eccentrics.
Have you seen any of that on your digs or?
Yeah, I have the first commercial dig I ever did, an eccentric Montel come out, and this guy he was from Kansas. I'll never forget him. He's been a good client, and he was just having bad luck all day long. Everyone else around him was finding stuff. He wasn't. And then all of a sudden he's like hooping and hollering, wanting to give me this hug and all this stuff. And I'm like, well, what is going on, John? You know, I know you're from Kansas. I mean, Toto, but, you know, come on, dude. You know, and it was an eccentric Montel piece.
Wow.
And it was pretty cool. And, you know, I found an eccentric Castroville, you know. It was broken, but his was complete, and it was pretty cool.
Wow.
So... And, of course, the Cody Tripp Andice, I believe you found it and then gave it to Cody, right? Right, Kyle?
That's right.
That's my story. I was sticking to it.
So, you know, those don't come along very often. So, great find, bro.
When we were at the Skyline Ranch, I had actually just learned that this artifact that Cody Tripp had found basically made him famous in the Arrowhead digging community.
Yeah.
And I just learned the name of it, and then they were like, dude, you can just look it up online. And then they showed me pictures of it. And so like Clint shows up with a bunch of beers and shit. We're at the river. And so I just tell him the story about how I found it. I was like, I found this eccentric andice, but I didn't know what it was. And Cody Tripp was right next to me. And I asked him, hey man, do you know? He's like, it's nothing. So I just tossed it. And he picked it up.
Yeah. Next day, he's famous for finding this point. Right.
Totally claim credit for it. Oh man, no, that would have been awesome. But so in the picture, like that's the only. Well, I saw some other eccentrics when I was looking through that, but basically they have. Like they cut grooves or nap grooves,
other
like
notches
deep
into it.
the
Yeah,
side. Is that just typical of an eccentric? Is that the way they are?
Yeah, it's somebody goofing around, maybe it could be ceremonial.
Yeah.
Or it could be somebody on some good peyote or something saying, hey man, let's just see what I can do to this thing and throw some notches and jags in it here and there, you know.
But they look badass. And
they're cool.
They must have also thought they looked badass, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. There would have been the practical guys that were like, well, now you can't use it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But yeah, they're beautiful. I mean, I've seen some pictures of eccentrics that look like dragons, that are snakes or serpents.
Right.
Like they're not just arrowheads. They would shape them into these animal figures too. They're just amazing. No, I'm sure those are really rare. There was an obsidian one that looked like a dragon. It was just, I mean, it was not even closely resembling any kind of cutting tool. It had the same edges and everything, like they would, but
It was basically a sculpture.
yes, it was a sculpture that they did use the napping style. It was real thin and then had the sharp edges all the way around it because you could see how they had napped the edge, but it was not a cutting tool at all or a point. But
they had some sort of use for it, ceremonial or just goofing
gift.
around or gift or trade piece or something. I guess no one will ever really know, but other than it wasn't probably used.
Yeah, they would also be cool as pendants, like if you wore it. Yeah.
And then you just like trip one day and it just it's like, oh dang it, there was our best napper.
He's legendary, killed by a dragon.
Yeah.
So what about the corner tangs? Like I've heard and read a lot that corner tangs are often found with burials.
So they say.
So they say.
Yeah. They say they were used for scalping. This one's a oucher killer. They say that they were used for circumcision.
Oh, okay.
Decisions.
Yeah.
I don't know how true that is.
Yeah.
But they say there's multiple uses. The corner tang, the way that it's shaped, they said that they would, there's a lot of theory that they would tie sinew around that corner and dangle it from their wrist.
Oh.
So while they were working with it, they could just flip it up into their palm and go to...
Yeah, I'd like to see a guy buy like a brand new Kershaw and just dangle it from his wrist while he's working, right?
Yeah.
That's real smart. I've heard that too, and I don't don't think that's the case. Like, but I don't know, right?
So have you heard of they call them charms or whatever? They look like I think they look like plumb bobs. You know what I'm talking about? And they call them charms because they don't think that Indians use plumb bobs for anything to make anything straight up and down.
I had never heard
they're not. I don't think they're in Texas, but they're more like the mound builder areas. There's a lot of these things they call charms or whatever, so they're more in the east.
I wonder if that's the same thing they're calling like a Waco sinker or...
Maybe.
I've found atlatl weights that look like a plumb bob.
Oh, yeah? Mm-hmm. Wow.
To help project the deal, but that one can't answer you on there.
Yeah. I look at them and I'm like, they look like a plumb bob, basically. Something where you can hang it from a string and you'll get the 90 degrees to the ground,
Which makes sense for a mound builder because they were very precise on their
their building stuff. Exactly, yeah. But they call them charms because, of course, they can't be construction devices.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Nomadic people don't have construction devices.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, back to the corner tangs real quick, like, have you found any or been any sites that you've been on have produced them?
Mason Creek 2. I found my first corner tang out of 34 years, and I've dug a lot. Testing a site 30 minutes before dark before I had 22 customers coming in.
Yeah.
And I'd gotten all my screens set up, and I said, oh, shit. I better start a hole here. I've got 22 people paying $250. I better.
Yeah.
I have some sort of idea of what's going on here. So I did it, and the third load, I took one swipe in the dirt, and I found the corner tang, and I was like, holy crap, you know, and I hit my knees like, thank you, and all this stuff, and hooped and hollered, and my brother thought I'd cut my hand. He was like, what's going on, you know, and I was like, look, and I just handed it to him. I was like, you know, so.
Yep. Drop the mic. Leave the stage.
Yeah, and then I had, since then, in 3 years, I've dug up 72 corner tangs.
Holy crap.
Oh my
for
God.
customers. Mason Creek 2, we found, let's see here, Mason Creek 1, we found 17.
Wow.
And Mason Creek 2, we found 23. No, it was 14, and then 23. And then in one day, 5 of them came out.
Wow.
And it takes people years to find them, you know.
So I wonder if they were for scaling fish. They're all on that river.
Who knows?
I don't know,
a bad
just
idea.
Like, you know, like it would work for scaling fish.
But I know some people that they found 5, 10, 15 of them, you know. But
Wow.
I mean, if you imagine it being hafted the same way the normal, like, I guess the tang
Half
on the
something,
bottom,
yeah.
you would haft it. It would be like a scythe, but they're small.
right.
It's like maybe it was like tiny little. Maybe they were just getting started with crops. You know, it's like,
Little children of the corn. Dang,
but that's
you know.
okay. So that's kind of why you say that. You know, that's what they say about it being found in burials, because where you were digging, there were no burials
Exactly.
Yeah.
full of
Exactly.
corner tangs. So that
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's all myth, and you know.
Yeah. Our own myth.
Yeah, exactly. You know, but it's a pretty unique piece. You know, I've only found one. When I found base tangs, I've found. My mom has found a mid-back tang, which are even more rare than the.
so like
the-
halfway down the arrowhead on the side or something. There's a tang
Yeah,
there.
yeah, right there in the middle of it, and it's
What is-
awesome.
What the hell is that for?
I don't know.
So what about like
Bet you can't make the tang right there in the middle of that arrowhead.
Yeah,
like the idea of like axe heads or tomahawk heads and stuff like that? Are those real, or is that also just?
Oh no, they're absolutely real. They call them grooved axes or hematite axes, and they're up in the eastern part. You know,
Oh, okay.
anywhere from Michigan all the way down to East Texas.
Wow.
You know, Northeast Texas. They call them grooved axes. Some of them are really grooved and polished, and they're down to a wedge. And I mean,
What
it's
are they
cool.
made of? Granite?
Some are out of sandstone, some are out of granite, some are out of hematite.
Yeah.
Whatever they had, you know.
But they weren't napping
No,
axe
they,
heads.
they were actually just polished.
Okay, how do you
Ground down
and ground
and
down,
polished, yeah.
honed down.
Wow.
And
Granite.
Now
Grief.
you may find a big old spearhead looking thing that's real gaudy looking.
Yeah.
That could have possibly been hafted and
Yeah.
made into like an axe or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
But
Granite. That stuff's hard.
Yeah.
We have a buddy
real
that
hard.
found like it's about almost 7 inches long. It's it has no tang, no
right.
grooves in it at all. But the center looks like almost like a flute was taken across this body of right in the middle of the knife. And so I was
So-
like, dude, that looks like a freaking tomahawk blade, because it's even almost bent like this.
Yeah, it very well could be, you know.
But it's out of flint. you know.
Yeah, it very well could be.
Wow.
Some sort of knife, or maybe they'd use it as a tomahawk, you
Yeah.
know. Pickaxe,
cool.
you know.
Yeah, pickaxe. Stabby thingy.
For pickaxing bodies.
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
That's cool. So when you were talking about the way they price them, and you were saying first stage or whatever it's called, when they're really large, like what's the oh, what do we got here? Oh, it looks like a set of lungs.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, Brett, the watcher just put a picture of them. What do you call that?
The middle tang.
Yeah, that's the mid-back tank.
Yeah, mid-back
Mid-back.
tang.
Yeah.
They do look like lungs.
That looks like a unifacial too, because that side doesn't even look.
Yeah, that's the same
I think it's the
piece.
same
just-
one flipped over.
Yeah, both pieces just
Right,
flip.
that's the other side, and
Yeah.
it's not even hardly napped. It's
Yeah.
like that's strange.
Oh.
Yeah,
Sorry,
that's
I caught that.
Yeah,
well,
normally we're normally facing the screen. This time we're not. Yeah.
But yeah, so what I was asking is like, what are some of the largest I guess, pieces, are those worth the most, right? When they're
Yeah,
large?
if they're in pristine, you know.
Yeah.
Once again, first stage, you know, I've seen some killer pieces, you know, but andice, for instance, they're you hardly ever find them complete.
Yeah.
And that's what Cody Tripp's was, not to mention.
It was eccentric.
It was an eccentric
Yeah.
andice. And andice is my favorite piece, you know. I've found a bunch of them, but I've never found a complete one.
Wow.
And,
And why is that? Why are they?
Their ears are as long as their stem. So
Wow.
they're very grooved down. I mean, they come down and their ears come down, and then it has a notch and comes up all the way. So they're very fragile.
Oh,
The
yeah.
ears are usually what's broken off.
Yeah, ears. The only close to complete one that I've found is it was both the ears were on it, but it had an impact fracture on the tip, which is where it hit something.
Oh, yeah.
And I had it restored. You can have them restored.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. You were talking about restoring them.
Yeah,
like people
so-
will come in and like make it look perfect.
Yes, with some sort of like a plaster or epoxy or something, and then the guys that are really good, they're artists, just like the Indians were.
Yeah.
So they would actually nap it.
Oh, yeah.
And then they paint it to
Oh,
that
so
color.
they put some epoxy on it, and then when it dries, they can nap that epoxy.
Nap it
Yeah.
to fit it.
To fit.
And it's all a guesstimation on the length and whatever, you know.
That's awesome.
But the only complete andice I have, if I'm going to tell this story real quick, is on my chest. And I had a very poor, there's an andice right there.
Oh, yeah.
Had a very poor tattoo artist. And they did just an outline when I did that hunt with Chad Middens, the MMA fighter.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sure most people know who he was. He fought Conor McGregor in Vegas and all that stuff. And I come out of my room that next morning, and I don't have my shirt on. He said, "Bro, cool rocket." I'm like, "Dude, that is not a rocket. That's an arrowhead. We're about to go to the octagon right now, dude." And, so then I got it flaked and everything. So that's the only andice I have now.
The only whole one.
Okay, that
Yeah.
just reminded me. When we were in Big Bend, there was a place like right down by the hot springs. There are these cliff walls, and we saw these little paintings on the wall, and I made the joke like, "Dude, look, they're rocket ships.
Oh, yeah.
They look like paintings of andice. They look
Yeah.
Probably were.
just like that."
That's
Yeah.
right.
And they were all over. There was this whole bunch of them.
Yeah,
See, so even when the Indians paint them, they look like rockets.
absolutely. Okay, cool.
Yeah, you're good, bro.
right,
your
good.
tattoo artist was doing his job right.
Right on.
It just takes a guy that doesn't know the different types of arrowheads
Yeah.
to call it a rocket.
To
Yeah,
call it a rocket.
that's
That's
all
right.
But no, andices are cool. They're transitional paleo. They're 8,000 to 9,000 years old,
Oh, wow.
and they're my favorite. You know, there's been some really pristine ones come out that are just like, I mean, some of them are worth $20,000-$30,000.
Yeah.
Damn.
But you don't find them complete all the time.
So why do you think that they built them like that where they're so fragile?
Well, I don't know. I think they were some sort of knife. I mean, they'd have it right there at the base there and come in and maybe it was like a barb or something, you know?
Yeah, okay. That's real interesting.
Yeah, it does seem strange that they would make
Something
that they
so
would
fragile
continue to
that-
make it where it was so fragile. Maybe it was
Yeah.
for delicate like surgical work.
Could be. It's like the Clovis spear points are just like leaf shaped. They don't, you know.
Right.
And then they have the flute. There's no.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've just got the parallel flaking on the side there, you know.
Yeah.
But it's but that flute was the blood flute
Yeah.
because those guys were taking down woolly mammoths.
Yeah. Exactly.
So, you know, you get stabbed by 4 or 5 of those, you're going to leave a blood trail
Exactly.
with that flute, and I guess that's what they figured out, you know.
Yeah.
So theory says.
That's
Yeah.
kind of cool.
So, you know, it's had that indention, that flute
Right.
there,
So the
and-
blood could come out because otherwise you just stop it up. Yeah.
I don't remember where if I read this or was told this, but the idea that they actually made their shafts where they could just stick that fluted point in.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't hafted, and then they would stab it and pull out, and they could just put another one on it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. That's
I
actually
heard that.
That's
I don't know.
interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know how true that is. I mean, but it kind of makes sense. you
Yeah.
know?
And then it would be a blood flute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you pull the stick off of it and then blood will come out.
Right.
Ah, that's
Yeah.
good point.
Yeah. That's cool.
Have to check into that.
Try it out on somebody.
Yeah. I play no contender. Play the fifth.
Yeah, that's right.
So have you ever, any of the sites that you've dug in, have you gotten into paleo layers? Or?
Yeah. Dug a site up there at Lake Hills. Found some St. Mary's Halls, which are basically unfluted Clovis, Plainview. A lot of controversy about that. We found 5 or 6 of those up there.
Wow.
The site that y'all were at, where that was cleared off before the shelter, Skyline Shelter,
Yeah.
where y'all surface hunting, we found 2 Clovis there.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Damn.
So,
On the surface? Or digging?
digging.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's
Yeah, and you have to wonder if, like, the later people came along and would find them also and then use them, too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You know, they found a lot of Clovis and Folsom on the Galt site, which is one of the most famous paleo sites there is. And I think they were anywhere from a foot down to 8 or 9 foot down. But I forget how many they found, but it was hundreds of them
Wow.
concentrated.
So why was the site, the original one you were talking about in Lake Hills, controversial?
Because it was the St. Mary's Hall. Thomas R. Hester named it, and he named that point after. It's not too far from that site, but they call them plain views. It's all the flaking.
Okay.
However it wants to be authenticated. You know, they look at the flaking, the oblique flaking, the parallel flaking, the size of it, all kinds of stuff. So
the points themselves were controversial in terms of that people were identifying them as
St. Mary's Hall, and one guy may say, "Oh, that's a plain view,"
Oh, yeah.
I got you.
or one may say, "Well, a plain view is just an unfluted Clovis."
Yeah.
It's all different theories.
Yeah, and that's the other thing is that like all, everybody. When I was first getting into this, I was learning about how old they are, where they're from, what they were used for, and it's like I realized at some point, like Russ and I, doing this podcast, we always finding this out. It's like actually nobody knows.
Yeah.
And it's really the obvious thing. Like obviously we don't know, but it never really occurred to me until after we started getting into all the other ancient crazy shit, all over the world that really just nobody freaking knows. And that's I love that,
Yeah.
the mystery of
There's
the
still mystery, yeah.
the mystery of the Middens.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
To me, that's the coolest thing about looking for artifacts is when I find that artifact out of the ground and I put my hands on it, I'm the first person to touch that
Yeah.
since the last person.
Yeah, it's thousands of years, possibly. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's kind of the cool thing. That's what kind of hooks me on the artifacts and stuff like
Yeah.
that. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So
Yep. That's why I always want to, I always talk about, like, I want to find the hidden tomb.
Yeah.
And then you end up being the skeleton stuck to the spikes on the end.
right.
That way, when you go in there, you'd be like, damn it! He was in here first. I mean, that skeleton right there. Found it before I did.
Exactly.
But I was just saying this to Russ the other day, like finding a mound, like, a well-preserved mound down in the woods in the middle of nowhere that hasn't been dug in is it's the same feeling as finding an artifact to me.
Oh, yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I see that mound, I'm just like, oh! It's so freaking badass.
Yeah.
Because that is one giant artifact,
Yeah.
Oh,
That
absolutely.
midden mound is what I'm talking about. I mean, I would love to find a dirt pyramid too, but
Yeah.
not around here, I guess.
Yeah, if you ever get a chance, go to Crockett, Texas. There's a true mound there right outside of Nacogdoches.
Oh, really?
In between Crockett and Nacogdoches, I believe it is. It's pretty cool, And then up in Murfreesboro, Arkansas, where the diamond mines are.
Yeah.
I don't know if y'all have ever been there, but
No.
that's pretty cool too. But there's another mound that
Wait. That modern diamond mines?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I was like,
Yeah.
the Indians were mining diamonds?
Yeah, no.
Whoa.
No, but across the river there's a mound that they reconstructed. The archaeologists dug it up and it's reconstructed with the actual bones and the bodies and how they lived, and it's pretty cool.
Wow. That's cool.
So if you ever get a chance to go check that out, it's in Murfreesboro, Arkansas.
Okay.
Awesome.
Cool.
All right. Well, we're getting up there on time, so
You got any other stories you want to tell? Like, what's the craziest thing that's ever happened to you? Doesn't have to be Arrowhead or hunting related. Just the craziest shit that's ever happened to you. Story you tell in the bar when you get hammered.
Right. I would probably have to say I was digging a camp one time, and it's a pretty cool story. It was in Junction, Texas on Johnson Creek, and this landowner said I could go out there and dig it, and it was a bright sunny day, and there was a bluff, and I didn't see any livestock around or anything, and I'm digging in this midden, and I see the scorpion on my knee, and I thought, whoa! So I brush it off, and I'm digging, and it was several little middens, around, and another one's on me, and I'm like, whoa! So I brush this off, and I'm kind of looking around, and all of a sudden the wind picked up, and it like just a gust of wind come through, and all this dust come blowing because we were on a creek bed, kind of, and out of this dust and the wind came a solid white horse and 2 paint horses.
Oh, shit.
And they stopped at me, and I was like, whoa, I better cover this back up. So I covered it back up and moved on. I don't know if it was coincident or what.
Holy shit.
That's pretty weird.
Yeah, so that's probably the weirdest thing I've ever... Craziest thing.
Shit.
Yeah. That was years ago. But... So I never went
digging
back
over
there.
top of a longhead.
Yeah.
Got to get out of there. That's badass. All right, so give us your contact info. Like, if people want to go hunting with you, if they want to go Arrowhead, dig in, whatever.
Or if you're a landowner and you think you might have, if you're on a creek or a river,
Yeah, absolutely.
and you want somebody to come find some mounds and maybe
make you some money.
maybe do a dig or do some hunts.
Yeah, for sure. It's a cash cow. I mean, the last dig I did at Mason Creek 4, I mean, that landowner made $17,000 in 4 days.
Wow.
And it's because people pay to hunt arrowheads just like they pay to go hunting.
Yeah.
So it's whatever your hobby is. You're going to pay to
do it. Yeah.
do whatever. Skydive or whatever the case is. So. But you can contact me. My email's clint.beckham@yahoo.com.
Okay.
830-313-2648. Feel free to call me anytime.
Is there a website for the Skyline?
No, sir. For Audad Adventures and More.
Okay, yeah.
Is what we're called. The and More's, the Arrowheads and stuff like that.
Right.
But I don't have anything Arrowhead related on that hunting website.
Yeah.
So it's audadadventures.com.
Okay.
AOUDAD adventures.com.
Okay.
And that's my hunting website. One of them, I'm building another one for the axis hunting, the whitetail,
Cool.
etc. Hog hunting, I've got places in East Texas to look for arrowheads as well. Down there in East Texas. And whitetail hunt West Texas, whitetail hunt East Texas, hill country, wherever. So.
All right, and we're gonna put all that stuff, the phone number, the email, the websites in the show notes, so you guys can go look at that if you didn't catch it. So it will be down there. Give them a call or write them an email or go to the website. Go get lost and die.
All right.
And
Use the promo code SNAKEBROS.
There you go. Right, exactly.
all right, man. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
we really appreciate it. And thanks to all you listeners out there. We appreciate you guys too. This is episode 62 of Snake Bros. See you guys next time. Have a good night.